let's jump right in. Today, we're tackling a scenario that is, frankly, terrifying, but also deeply fascinating. Imagine waking up today stripped of every single asset, your bank account at absolute zero. What do you do? Well, this is the exact practical roadmap I would personally use to rebuild my financial stability from absolute scratch. No fluff, just the step-by-step process I'd follow to build an invisible fortress of wealth starting tomorrow. Seriously, take a second and really imagine this daunting reality. You wake up, you check your banking app, and the balance is just a flat zero. No savings, no hidden cash stashes under the mattress. It's a terrifying thought, right? But here's the thing. The most critical moment is what you choose to do in that very first hour. Do you panic or do you start executing? The secret to escaping zero starts with a massive mindset shift. In the entrepreneurial world, there's this concept called effectuation. If I were sitting at absolute zero, I'd use this agile methodology to basically stop waiting for the perfect conditions. I'm not waiting for a lucky break and definitely not waiting for a magical loan. Instead, I'd look around at the resources, the skills, and the networks I have right this second, even if they seem totally negligible, and I just start building. We have to reframe $0. It's not a failure state. It's a clean slate, one that forces intense creative problem solving. Let's look at this incredible insight from financial expert Morgan Housel. He famously highlights that wealth is driven by your behavior and your patience, way more than pure intellect. He uses this amazing example of a totally discreet janitor. This guy lived a super modest life, consistently saved and invested whatever he could, and ended up retiring with over $8 million. Meanwhile, we saw highly educated, flashy businessmen lose literally everything in the 2008 crash. So the takeaway? Attitude and discipline beat a high IQ every single time. So here's the agenda for today's explainer. First, the $0 mindset. Second, securing your first $500. Third, building your defensive shield. Fourth, growing your income engine. Fifth, investing and automating. And finally, the boring path to wealth. Let's get into it. Step 1, the $0 mindset, or escaping the garage startup myth. Step 2 is securing your first $500, the day zero hustle. Now, when you're at zero, you absolutely have to abandon your ego. Your only goal right now is to secure any form of income to get your bank account moving in the right direction. There's this great story about entrepreneur Spencer Kozak. Before he made millions in sales, he actually found himself needing to start entirely over. And you know what? He didn't sit around waiting for a venture capitalist to hand him a giant check. He went out and got a regular, super accessible retail job at GNC. His only goal was to save up a tiny micro buffer of $800. Why? Because that tiny buffer is magic. It prevents small emergencies from turning into brand new toxic debt. And for him, it gave him the breathing room to pay for an insurance licensing exam. You have to stabilize the basics first. This perfectly illustrates the difference between surviving and building. When you have $0, I would rely 100% on fast methods. I'm talking about things that pay in under 30 days, selling items I own, offering freelance services on platforms like Fiverr or Malt. You use these fast, active income methods just to survive, right? And then you use that stability to fund your durable methods, things like building a business, learning a high-income skill, or creating content. Those durable methods might take 3 to 12 months to actually pay off, but they're the long game. Now, if you're sitting there thinking you don't have options, think about the founders of Airbnb. Back in 2008, they were drowning in credit card debt, completely desperate to keep their site alive. But instead of throwing in the towel, they went to the store, bought generic cereal, packaged it in these politically themed boxes called Obama O's and Cap'n McCain's, and literally sold them for $40 a box. And guess what? They made $30,000. I know, it sounds totally crazy, but it proves a point. With enough grit, you can literally will money into existence. Step 3, building your defensive shield and protecting your progress. Before you can truly save, you have to stop the bleeding. So if I had high-interest debt, I would attack it immediately. You can use the debt avalanche approach, which means paying off your highest interest rates first so you save money overall. Or you could use the debt snowball method, where you clear the smallest balances first to get those quick psychological wins. Either way, picking one beats doing nothing. You have to get rid of the toxic debt. Once that's out of the picture, the crucial next step is building a real emergency fund. Financial experts from Mon Petit Capital boldly emphasize this golden rule. You need 3 to 6 months. Before doing anything fancy, before investing a dime, you must save 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a highly accessible savings account. This is the foundation, guys. It makes every single future financial decision significantly less stressful. Just think about it for a second. A broken car shouldn't break your entire portfolio. The absolute number one mistake beginners make is skipping the emergency fund and throwing their very first $500 straight into the stock market. But what happens? A real emergency hits. Maybe it's a medical bill, or your car breaks down. Suddenly, they're forced to sell their investments, often at a major loss, just to get the cash they need to fix the car. Don't do that. Build the shield first. Step 4. Growing your income engine. This is all about raising the ceiling. Here's a fundamental truth of personal finance. Cutting your expenses has a hard floor. I mean, you still have to eat, you still have to pay rent, right? But growing your income, that has absolutely no ceiling. To raise that ceiling, you need to increase your value in the marketplace. Coursera actually identified several high-income skills that are in massive demand right now. We're talking generative AI, data analysis, cybersecurity, UX design, and project management. And the real beauty of this era is that you don't need a formal 4-year university degree to learn these things. You can learn them online, often for a fraction of the cost, and drastically increase your earning power. Let's look at the entrepreneurial side. How does this translate into starting a business with zero capital? It's all about lean startup tactics. Please, don't go out and buy expensive gear or sign a massive commercial lease. Utilize free software tools. But most importantly, pre-sell your product or service before you even produce it. You want to validate that people actually want to pay for your idea before you spend a single dime building the thing. All right, step 5, investing and automating, making your money work for you. Once that income engine is humming along and your defensive shield is up, it's finally time to start safely deploying your cash. The most powerful tool you have as a beginner is called DCA, or dollar cost averaging. It sounds complex, but it's incredibly simple. You just invest a fixed amount of money, let's say $100, at regular intervals, like every single month. And you do this regardless of what the stock market is doing. If the market happens to be high, your $100 buys fewer shares. If it's low, great, you buy more shares on sale. It's an automation hack that completely removes the anxiety of trying to perfectly time the market. It relies on automated systems instead of your daily willpower. So what exactly should you be buying with this DCA strategy? Well, let's look at the data. Did you know that between 80 to 90% of highly paid active professional fund managers actually fail to beat the standard market benchmark over a 10-year period? Yeah, 80 to 90%. If the pros in Wall Street suits can't do it, neither can we from our couches. The absolute smartest move for a beginner is to simply buy the whole market passively using a low-cost ETF or exchange-traded fund. But you have to watch out for these silent killers that ruin wealth. Look really closely at these fees. A seemingly tiny difference of just 1.5% in annual fees between a cheap ETF and an actively managed fund? I know it doesn't sound like much today, but when you compound that over 30 years, it can silently wipe out 30% of your total final capital. That is massive. So the rule here is keep your investments boring, broad, and cheap. Which brings us to our final step. Step 6, the boring path to wealth. This is where true security lives. Morgan Housel points out this totally fascinating contradiction in finance. Getting rich, that requires audacity, optimism, and taking big risks. But staying rich, that requires the exact opposite. It requires fear, humility, and the deep knowledge that everything you've built could vanish if you get reckless. So you need aggressive hustle on day 0? Absolutely. But you need defensive, humble discipline to actually keep what you earn on day 1,000. See, we often confuse wealth with spending. But as Housel notes, true wealth is actually invisible. It's not the flashy car or the designer clothes you see all over social media. Those things just show that someone spent money. Real wealth is the unspent assets. It's the fully funded emergency fund, the compounding ETF, the complete lack of debt. It's the money working silently in the background so you literally never have to stress about finances again. So, as we wrap up this roadmap, I want to leave you with this thought. Starting from zero isn't about getting rich fast. It's about stacking small, boring, consistent decisions that compound into real security over time. Are you building a lifestyle just to show off to other people? Or are you executing the daily hustle to build an invisible foundation that will give you absolute, total freedom? Start with what you have right now, today. Build that tiny buffer and let compounding do the rest.